All right, good morning. So glad you've joined us again. Let me show you something right quick. I don't know if you can see this, but we've been joined by dogs and cats. This morning, the chickens have ran to the corner of their little fence area, and I think they want to get in on this reading from John chapter 4 this morning. How cool is that? And so it's a blessing always to be with you. As I've mentioned, I have just so enjoyed getting up on Sundays and preparing my mind with you just by reading a portion of the Bible that I love. I love so much of the Bible. All of the Bible is appropriate to say there, but John has always been a gospel that has just been really blessed my life. And so we're just reading through John. Again, I'm not just necessarily pouring in study hours to what I'm saying this morning. I've studied, the Bible for a long time now, and especially this book, and that doesn't mean I know more than anybody. I'm just again being blessed by taking these times Sundays at 6 and just reading through and just sharing some thoughts with you. And so again, thank you for joining in. This morning is John chapter 4. John chapter 4, and wow, do I love the story of the woman of Samaria. And so let's just see. Here we go. John chapter 4. The Bible reads in verse 1. Therefore, when the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself was not baptizing, but his disciples were, he left Judea and went away again into Galilee. And so you might remember, I think last week I mentioned how, this text is saturated with talk of baptism. We have, mentioning of John the baptizer, and then we've got this language that indicates being born of water and the Spirit, which again I shared with you. I think because of the context there's indication of that referring to baptism. Hey cat, got the cat joining us now too. Just can't be left out, can you? And so again, such an important part of the gospel, and I always like to make sure I give it appropriate mentioning, especially when we see it in the text like this. And so again, the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John. And remember, they were somewhat intrigued by John baptizing, by this wild man from the wilderness, coming and preaching loudly and then baptizing. And so I guess the indication here is that attention was kind of shifting here, as John mentioned it needed to in his last testimony. And so Jesus, his time has not yet come. We often read that language. He now understands that it's time for him to depart from Judea, again, where Jerusalem is, and go once again into Galilee, where he kind of, where his base of operation tends to be. Galilee's to the north of Judea. And if you know Bible regions, you know that Judea being in the south, Galilee being in the north, and Samaria is right in the middle. And perhaps you're also familiar that the Jews, and did I say that right? Judea, Galilee, Samaria in the middle. The Jews in those north and southern regions didn't associate with the Samaritans. And so the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans is so appropriate anytime we're talking about prejudice and issues of race. And obviously in our current climate, I would ask you to very strongly study if your heart is hurt so often by issues of race and injustice, and if you too try to be one that doesn't allow that plague to interfere with your life and in your heart, then study the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans, and especially how Jesus treated the Samaritans. We'll keep going. And so I love verse 4. He had to pass through Samaria. perhaps indicating there that he needed to. I think some translations say he needed to go through Samaria. And he came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Interesting reference, there to the Old Testament. I hope you've been blessed by those stories you read in the Old Testament. And Jacob's well was there. Really neat to talk about the origin of Jacob's well, but we'll keep going. And Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, being wearied from his journey, was sitting thus by the well, and it was about the 6th hour. The 6th hour there. And so likely a hot and unattractive time of the day to be carrying water from a city to a well. But I always like focusing on just a few words there. So Jesus being wearied from his journey. So Jesus being wearied. If you know me, you know that I always like to give emphasis to Jesus as a man. I fully believe that he was man and God, as intriguing and mysterious as that is. But Jesus here, he had been traveling, like you and I. When we travel, we had, he had grown tired, and he's not traveling in a nice, air-conditioned vehicle or anything like that. But he's grown weary. He's grown tired. He's been ministering. No doubt his mind has been thinking about what his ministry is going to look like. He's just had the experience where attention is being drawn to him, yet he knows that his time has not yet come. There are things that he needs to fulfill. And so just not only physically weary, but no doubt just mentally weary. And so he comes to this well that has been a place of gathering, a place of rest since Jacob, for maybe, I guess, a couple thousand years at this point. Check me on that. It's getting close to a couple thousand years here with the reference to Jacob. And so just takes a seat. And sometimes we think that vacation is needed to just turn everything off and to get a break and to just rest, and that's good and that's true, but we can't ever turn off ministry to the lost. And here Jesus is wore out, he's taking a break, but here comes this opportunity in the form of this woman of Samaria. I love this interaction. I won't be able to, I just won't during this short time, reveal all that even I think or know about it, and certainly I don't know everything, but let's just read through it. Beautiful, beautiful interaction. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said to her, "Give me drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. And that's interesting to me. Sometimes Jesus would just, miraculously make food, for folks, but there was always purpose and reason behind that. And his disciples, and he are hungry here. His disciples, again, are doing what you and I would do. They're going to find food for Jesus and themselves. And anyway, give me drink. Verse 9 says, "Therefore the Samaritan woman said to him, 'How is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, since I am a Samaritan woman?'" Every word means something there, For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Again, a little insight there into the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans, as I said. So beneficial for us to study and to know just a little bit more deeply about. And so Jesus answered and said to her, and I just love this, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." And so it's kind of like, if you really knew who I was, who I am, Jesus is saying, and not in an arrogant way or anything like that. Like, don't you know who you're talking to? No, just in a precious, caring, loving way. If you really knew who I was, this water that you're drawing from even Jacob's well would be the last thing on your mind. If you would have asked, he would have given you living water. If you would have asked, he would have given you living water. She said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water?" And I don't know about you, but I kind of see just a defensiveness in her, and I see that even more as we keep reading. But you know, she's one who's likely had to prove herself. There's all kinds of things we can read into her being at the well at this time, being a woman. Here in just a minute, we'll you know, see more revealed about her life. But you know, and how often and how familiar are we too with this just, you know, this just response of defensiveness, because we've come to expect people to treat us poorly or treat us differently or not care about who we really are. And again, maybe reading in some there, but I just see this. She's always quick to just, you know, defend herself, and she's so focused on you know, the physical right now, and that's been her life, that's been her heart, I believe here. And so, you know, again, living water. Sir, you have nothing to draw with. This well's deep. You know, you can't just scoop it out with your hand. Where then do you get that living water? You are not greater than our father Jacob, are you? And I don't mean to read into it. It's just how I see this. You know, you're not greater than our father Jacob, are you? You know, is your water better than this water, so to speak, who gave us this well and drank of it himself and his sons and his cattle? And again, so neat there, because the Samaritans and the Jews of Judea, Galilee, you know, they respected the same origin. Things got, you know, different. Things went two different directions there if you study them historically. But again, she's drawing on something that no doubt is precious to Jesus too. You know, the story of his people and his father. Again, are you greater than Jacob, who gave us this well? Jesus answered and said to her, you know, and really, you know, the answer is yes. Yes, I am. Yes, I am greater. Jesus answered and said, "Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him shall never thirst. But the water that I give him will become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life." Again, this idea of abundance, this idea of having everything that we need in Jesus Christ, in the Word and the way, the truth and the light, and so just amazing there. I think, you know, everyone, you drink this water, you're going to thirst again. That's a promise, right? That's a promise. But whoever drinks the water I give, abundance. This morning I'm going to try to talk about this abundant peace that we have in God, because God is a God of peace, and how we need to so focus on that during these times of chaos. And so again, just a beautiful message there. What Jesus offers is an abundance of rest and peace, regardless of what this life throws at us. We drink, we eat, we consume, we live in houses that fall apart. You know, our hunger is never fulfilled. Not even if we eat a Snickers bar, right? Isn't that the commercial? I think I may be wrong on that, but you know, the woman said, "Sir, give me this water." You know, she hears it now. You know, give me this water, but she's still thinking physical, right? She says, "So I will not be thirsty, or have to come all the way here to draw." You know, and I can't help but think maybe Jesus smiles a little bit here. You know, she's saying, "All right, well, you got some water that keeps me from having to come this well every day during a hot time of the day, then bring it on. You know, bring it on. I am ready for it." Look here what Jesus does. And this is where it gets real, guys. This is where it gets real. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." I thought how, you know, she's been kind of surface level to this point. And Jesus knows that. Jesus knows she's guarded. She's been defensive. But now he says something that penetrates. I often pray that God penetrates my heart, that he sees through my defenses. And I pray for the wisdom in knowing what to say and letting his Spirit lead when we're ministering and trying to penetrate the hearts of others with our ministry. So Jesus says something here that penetrates. He says, go call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you have correctly you have correctly said, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. This you have said truly. Wow. And so Jesus gets into her heart there, you know, and her heart is the problem. It must be, based on what little we know from her, it must be. Okay, and so based on this, she understands that there's something special to Jesus. Okay, she's a believer. She's a Samaritan. She knows that prophecy is important. She also knows that there is an expectation of prophecy fulfilled as a believing Samaritan. And so she puts the pieces together here. She's thinking, you know, wow, he's telling me things about my life that there's no way that he could know. Verse 19, the woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. And notice what she does here, okay? I've often thought before how she's still deflecting, she's still defensive. Okay, Jesus has gotten into her heart with this issue now. But when she perceives that he's something special, she doesn't even, I guess, know the value of being healed just yet. She doesn't see that just yet. Why? I think because she's so caught up in religious differences. Okay, and I say that because notice what happens here. And again, we can relate to this. How often I fear that we're more passionate about our religious differences, who we are and what we do religiously based on what we study and understand. We're more passionate about that than we are, you know, the heart of religion. And so again, she's got a heart issue. Jesus gets to it. She's been shallow, defensive. Jesus gets to it. She realizes that he's perhaps someone that is unlike anyone else. And what does she do? She asks him a religious question. She asks him a religious question. And you know, sometimes I think that we're so distracted by our religious differences that, you know, Jesus might be in front of us one day, and we want to ask him, who's right? You know, who did this right? What Christian group did this right? And again, not that it's not important to study and to try to fulfill what God wants. I'm not saying that is important and that is good, but when we forget the heart of it all, then anyway, so look at what she says. Again, her question, her religious question. Verse 20, our fathers worshipped. Does that surprise you? It's a question about worship. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Again, a little bit of Samaritan history there clears that up. So, again, a question, what's right worship? Where do we worship, you know? Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither, listen to this, neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. Okay, so I think he's indicating there that there's a time coming where place doesn't matter. Okay, where place, specific place will be obsolete. That appears to me what he's saying. Verse 22, you worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. For salvation is from the Jews. Now notice what he did there. Again, he indicated, you know, what is right before God. He indicated this, okay? But, okay, he's saying that's the way it is now and was. Salvation is from the Jews. The Jews, you know, were right, is what Jesus is saying. But verse 23, but an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people the Father seeks to be his worshipers. What's he talking about there? I've heard a lot of different interpretations, a lot of different things, but again, I think based on the context of what's going on, I think Jesus is talking about worship that is with God, okay? purposed for His glory, okay, with His Spirit and in truth, in a heart that is right, in a heart that is open, defenses let down, submission to God, spirit and truth. Again, based on the context here, she's not being forthcoming with truth. Remember, she's being defensive. Okay, she's distracted by right worship. She's distracted by religious observance. And Jesus says, look, let me tell you what's right, but an hour is coming. Okay, an hour is coming, and I don't want to miss this part, verse 23. And now is when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people the Father seeks to be His worshipers. God is spirit. Again, I told you that spirit there, this reference to the presence of God. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit, in His presence, and in truth. Okay? I like to say being real, Sometimes I feel like it's too easy for us to, we go through the motions. We think that we've done something that praises and brings honor to God when we've just, are just robotic. Checklist religion, I fear so often we're guilty of. Verse 25, she's hearing this, and perhaps she's amazed, wow, that sounds good. Maybe she's thinking, but I just don't know, this is some man I've just met by a well, some random man. But I love verse 25 because, again, I know, she says, the woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. Okay, all right. So look here, you're telling me some pretty great stuff, but I'm not ready to jump in that boat just yet. I'm gonna wait for Messiah. I'm gonna wait for the Christ, the Anointed One. Okay, because I believe that one is coming, and man, I just wonder how bad she longed for that to come, with a heart that is hurting. She's so guarded, she's so defensive. No doubt perhaps she's just so wanting for Messiah to come. And she trusts that when He comes, again, when that one comes, He will declare all things to us. And boom, what does Jesus say, verse 26? I who speak to you am He. Man, oh man, do I wish I could see that one on replay. And perhaps one day we'll get to. I don't know if that's how it's going to work. but man, oh man, imagine when He says that. We could see what she did. I'll speed it up a little bit for you guys. But man, this is just good stuff. Verse 27. After that point, His disciples came, and they were amazed that He had been speaking with a woman. Yet no one said, what do you seek? Or why do you speak with her? And so they were thinking it, right? They were thinking it. So the woman left her water pot. It's beautiful. I've heard so many beautiful references to that verse, right? She dropped the reason that she came, right? Because that was no longer important, right? She had tasted this living water, right? She left her water pot. She went into the city and said to the men, come see a man who told me all the things I have done. This is not the Christ, is it? Again, it's neat for me to think about that statement. Her statement there makes me think that there's probably a lot more to this discourse than just what John revealed for us here. He told me all the things that I have done. Verse 30, they went out of the city and were coming to Him. Okay, just such the importance of us, come on now, being excited about Jesus. And so, her excitement, her belief, her trust in this man, Jesus, as the Christ, the Messiah, leads others, or makes others want to come see what's going on. And I think the same is true for us today. When the Spirit takes hold of us, when our passion for God surpasses the passion of all other things, people want to know what in the world we crazy people are on, and just amazing here. So verse 31 through 38, just kind of humorous to me. Meanwhile, the disciples were urging Him, saying, Rabbi, eat. We've been going to get you some food, eat. But He said, I have food to eat that you do not know about. Man, right? Because ministering is exciting. And I don't know, some of you have perhaps been a part of how, hunger, food kind of just loses its taste sometimes compared to, the excitement of ministry and seeing people's eyes and hearts and ears open to the beauty and glory of God. I have often thought, You know, did I eat today? You know, and I'm nowhere near, you know, what's going on here personally, but man, I get that. Come on, disciple, I have food to eat that you do not know about. So the disciples were saying to one another, well, no one brought him anything to eat, did he? Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. He says, do you not say that there are yet 4 months and then comes the harvest? Apparently a saying or maybe just indication that they would count down, you know, according to the growth of their crops, the time of harvest. Behold, I say, lift your eyes. You know, you're saying that, you know, it's coming, let's keep waiting to harvest. Jesus says, open your eyes, lift up your eyes, and look on the fields, for they are white for harvest. Again, remember, where are they? Had these people, had the Jewish people just grown blind to the Samaritans? The answer is yes. You know, they had gotten so consumed in themselves and in their kind that they had neglected a whole region of people who equally needed Jesus, needed Christ. And so again, so important for our times now. Open your eyes, look to the fields. You know, there is harvesting to do now, not wait, you know, now. Already he who reaps is receiving wages and is gathering fruit for eternal life. You know, the work's going on. You're missing out if you're not a part of it, so that he who sows and he who reaps may rejoice. You know, you're missing out on the rejoicing. For in this case, the saying is true, one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that which you have not labored. Others have labored and you have entered into their labor. Really neat there. Just, man, this idea that you know, we're not alone in this ministry. Even if you think you are right now, and I need to hear this lesson so often, you know, because it's easy for me to get discouraged, but, you know, I think that I'm alone. God has been working through faithful men and women well before me to prepare these fields for harvest, is what Jesus is saying here. You're not alone. You know, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm telling you, this is good stuff. Verse 39. And so what happened? You know, what happened? From that city, many of the Samaritans believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified. Again, the importance of us testifying. He told me all the things that I have done. So when the Samaritans came to Jesus, they were asking him to stay with them. And he stayed there 2 days, right? Many more believed because of his word. And they were saying to the woman, it is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves and know that this one is indeed the Savior of the world. You know, and wow, I just think that's just such a neat verse. So often we bear the weight of people remaining faithful on our shoulders. And I've got to be so careful with that, because, you know, the power of faith is from God, and the motivation of faith is Jesus, you know, and the strength of our faith is his Spirit. And we could talk about that differently perhaps, but you know, we lead people to the Lord, and we ourselves remain faithful and passionate in our life and in our ministry, and we trust that the same fire in us is able to consume and enliven others. And so just so neat there. You know, some might read that and think, well, man, why would they say that to that woman? No, that's a good thing. You know, that's a good thing. After 2 days, he went forth from there into Galilee. For Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. For when he came to Galilee, the Galileans received him, having seen all the things that he did in Jerusalem at the feast, for they themselves also went to the feast. A lot I'd like to say about that, but we're pushing on time. Let me read through these final verses, and then we'll wrap it up for this morning. Therefore, he came again to Cana of Galilee. That should be familiar to us, where he had made the water wine. And there was a royal official whose son was sick at Capernaum. Now notice here the transition from a Samaritan woman to a royal official, someone who I believe, I need to make sure, but again, just notice the transition there. You know, from I'll have to study the exact way that this royal official was before I say too much. But again, the transition there is so neat, right? From a Samaritan woman to a royal official whose son was sick at Capernaum. I'm assuming they're a Roman leader, and the knowledge of that's skipping my mind right now. when he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him, imploring him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. Okay? It's so important for us to be familiar with why Jesus said that. Verse 49, now listen to what the royal official says. The royal official said to him, Sir. And I think that is likely important, this reference to his humility. You know, he says to him, Lord. As a royal official, he says to Jesus, Lord, you know, come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, Go, your son lives. And the man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started off. I love that. He believed it, you know. And he was now going down. His slaves met him, saying that his son was living. And so he inquired of them the hour when he began to get better. And then he said to him, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. So the father knew that it was at that hour in which Jesus said to him, your son lives. And he himself believed, and his whole household. This is again a second sign that Jesus performed when he came out of Judea into Galilee. Again, just beautiful chapter. And I pray you're blessed by that, as I am. And, you know, perhaps if there's a single take-home at this moment as we close Sunday at 6, notice people. Give time to people. The harvest is ready. The field is ready for harvest. Whether in this context, a Samaritan woman or a royal official, we all need the living water that comes from Jesus Christ and Him alone. I love you. Thank you for being a part of these with me. See you next time.